veganism really healthy? Is it biblical? Hello everyone and welcome once again. So today we will be talking about a very kind of controversial issue among society, which is veganism versus animal based, and should humans really use animals? Should we really be consuming meat? And this video is less about veg versus non-veg and more about the truth about the vegan lifestyle and how we should navigate it. Let's start. What is a vegetarian? So a vegetarian basically means that he or she avoids consuming any food where the animal is slaughtered. So he or she is allowed to consume any animal product like milk or eggs or honey, anything as long as the animal is not slaughtered. So they avoid meat and fish. But unlike vegetarianism, veganism means that we avoid any sort of animal foods, and even to the extreme level, even animal products like leather, honey, silk, etc. So this movement started in the 1970s, while vegetarianism in the West started in the 1800s. But in the prehistoric societies, in the ancient societies, especially in the Far East, the vegetarianism was predominant. So we will look at both the diets, the diet where majority of plant products and another diet where there is majority of animal products, that is vegetarian food versus non-vegetarian food. So vegetarian food contains more amount of minerals, vitamins, fibers, etc., whereas non-vegetarian food contains more amount of proteins and fats and certain minerals like folic acid, vitamin B12, etc. And also about the vegetarian diet, there are plenty of sources like quinoa or pulses or soy, etc. In animal products there is meat and fish or eggs and milk. And yes, there is one advantage of the animal products, that it is more bioavailable, and hence the plant-based diet, personally speaking, is not applicable for everyone. And also for some, like in some situations like in the heart patients or diabetes, or if you have been bitten by a mouse or something, like such cases happen, then a plant-based diet is better to follow. Now we will talk about the cruel animal industry. So firstly, in the meat industry we see that animals are kept in extremely unhygienic conditions. They have been given poop to eat, they have been fed hormones and excessive force feeding, and also they get very badly injured. And yes, they are treated really cruelly or slaughtered very cruelly. Secondly, in the egg industry we see that like male chicks are being crushed or killed just because they can't lay eggs. Like this is really cruel, and so much of it is produced mass. And thirdly, in the dairy industry we see that there is a lot of multiple times the cows are being impregnated, and like the calves are being snatched out from their mother, and they give hormones and antibiotics to the cows, which is really cruel. Even in the fish industry there is mass farming, like the fish aren't able to even move nicely from one place to another. So the animal industry is really cruel. Unlike animals, plants don't have that amount of consciousness than animals, and this animal industry is really cruel. Now we will look at whether veganism is okay or not. One important announcement: I'm going to change my podcast name, and this podcast will be more focused on self-improvement and educational related content and less on faith or culture. Its name is called To Cultivate. This podcast will not only deal with the issues which people face, this podcast will also teach you how to become the best version of yourself
professionally, personally, and spiritually.
Do follow. So veganism was basically started for the welfare of animal rights by saying that animals have the basic rights just like humans, and animals should also are not supposed to be eaten, to be entertained with, to be used for clothing, etc. And so many animal welfare organizations like PETA or Live Kindly, etc., came into existence. So in 2010s, there was a rise on the vegan diet based on sustainability and all. Now about sustainability, like meat factories take a huge amount of land and there is a lot of carbon emissions, people say, but like sometimes even plant foods also do. So I personally think, or most people think, that sustainability does not necessarily mean the diet must be vegan, because sometimes vegan diet could also be unsustainable. I also believe that a locally grown animal
is more sustainable than an exotic plant food.
regenerative farming is taking place a lot, where like you use animals responsibly and with care, and it is a really good idea. And also now the carnivore diet trend is being started, and an animal based diet to counter the vegan diet. See, let me tell you one thing. Not one single diet suits everyone, and diets like consuming only one food, like consuming only meat or raw vegan, such diets are really extreme. And many diets, like even the vegan diet, is deficient of vitamin B. The pure carnivore diet is also deficient of many vitamins and minerals like fiber, and also like we should be really careful while you're following the restrictive diets. Now we will look at what scripture says. So in Genesis chapter 1 verse 29, God tells Adam and Eve that I will give you every seed bearing plant. So initially, like they consumed only plants, but after the Noah's flood took place, like God told him to take a pair of animals in his ark, and so from that meat consumption started. So all foods were declared clean except blood. And if we look at the OT laws, since Moses is exiled from Egypt, we see that God forbid Moses to eat unclean animals, and for some people to consume alcohol or any other fermented drink. Like animals like pork or shellfish or eagles, etc., were forbidden to consume. In the New Testament, we see that Peter was given like a vision of various animals, which included the unclean animals. And so we see that now we are not longer under the OT law, and hence all and foods are declared clean. Even if we look in the book of Daniel, we see that he and his friends did not consume any animal product for 21 days. Now the reason was that where they were in exile, there were foods which were served to idols and all the forbidden foods. Now in Christianity, the only restrictive foods, like the foods which we should abstain from, are blood, the food which is sacrificed to idols, and thirdly, strangled animals. Now we see that in scripture, what matters less is what you eat or what you wear, or whether you should wear makeup, and like this issue is more like should Christians be wearing makeup or jewelry, and less about like gender issues or abortion issues. So this is not a black and white issue. Furthermore, Mark 7 verse 15 says, what man enters from mouth doesn't make him clean, but what man pours out makes him clean or unclean. So what matters is godly behavior more. And like sometimes if we look at the cruel animal industry, we see that in some cases veganism is encouraged, and sometimes even more Christ-like. Even in some communities, we see that we should be abstaining from meat. Or in some communities, like the Catholic community, we see that in Fridays we should not be eating meat because of the crucifixion. Now, mandating such laws, I personally think, is not biblical. We will look now. Now about veganism, like there is the pro-vegan Christian people who say that veganism should be implied by all Christians, and consuming meat is, this idea is not biblical. And also there is now a growing trend of carnivore Christians who say that veganism is not biblical, or you're following a new age spirituality, or you're a soy boy, or you are gay, etc. And this demonization by both sides is really unbiblical and unchristlike. Now we will look at 1 Timothy chapter 4 verse 3 to 5. Now, as the times will get darker, it is said that false teachers will tell people to believe in the elemental spiritual signs and all those things, and they will forbid to marry, to abstain from foods like meat, which God created with thanksgiving. So here we see that forced veganism or forced abstinence from marriage is not biblical. Now, many people take this verse in wrong context and they say that everyone is commanded to eat meat or marry. See, not all are called to be married, and it's okay if you're not being married. It's okay to not consume meat or consume. Here it says that, saying the idea that eating meat in and itself or marrying in and itself is a sin for all believers, this idea is wrong. Let people follow whatever they want, because these issues are not salvific issues. See, a particular diet or a particular way of dressing is not a qualification to be godly. Everyone's culture, everyone's values differ. And also we see in Romans chapter 14 that let the one who eat vegetables eat, let one who eats meat eat. Don't demonize one another. Let the weak one who eats only vegetables glorify God, and let the one who consumes meat glorify God. Now again, here the weaker one is the vegan. What does it mean? See, in that culture, meat was seen as a royal delicacy, and mostly the poor people used to consume more plant products. But in the spiritual sense, it does not mean that the one who consumes meat is more godly than the one who does not. It simply says that generally the most people who don't consume meat or abstain have a more sensitivity towards nature, towards plants, towards animals, more stronger conscience. This is the meaning. And also about the new age, we see that in many new age spiritualities, in Eastern spirituality, we see that there is a huge amount of like veganism or vegetarianism encouraged. If you are becoming vegetarian or vegan because of ethical reasons or because of environmental reasons, because in many cases it could be a sustainable diet or a more compassionate diet, especially in the mass industrialization these days, then it's not wrong. Even if you are for spiritual reasons, or if you think that God has convicted you of abstaining from meat, then that's perfectly fine. But if you're doing it with the intention of the elemental spiritual science, or you'll be more purer, or your chakras will be balanced, etc., then that's not biblical. So your intentions matter a lot. And we should be really discerning with these things. And also, animal-based products are very healthy. So you should be following a particular diet which is firstly native to your own land, because that is more healthier, more bioavailable, and more suitable for your gut. And secondly, it should be a balanced diet. Like if you consume little less carbs and more amount of protein, then it's a really healthy diet. And also men's and women's diet patterns differ. So yes, we should stop disrespecting. And remember, veganism and vegetarianism or any carnivore diet or keto paleo is biblical. You're not sinning if you follow those diets. But it should be balanced enough, and you should have the right intentions and not demonize others. We should be eating more organic food, more regenerative food which is very sustainable to the environment, and not unhealthy processed foods. Let's discuss about animal rights. See, animals are really valued in the Bible. God says that we should be valuing and respecting animals. Certain rights are also supported. But animals, unlike humans, are not created in God's image. So it is not advisable to treat them exactly like humans. This does not mean for them to be treated cruelly. We should treat them kindly, but we should also recognize the value.
There is a lot of pet idolatry. Now, we should love our pets, but we should not treat them exactly as humans. For pet parents,
A Christian can be a veterinarian, a Christian can be in animal rights organizations, and from a biblical perspective, animal cruelty or mass animal agriculture or the cruel leather industry, circus industry, which makes animals blind, which destroys their lives, where they are treated cruelly in a cage, is unbiblical. And we should be really treating animals well. We should be stewarding.